I'm not making this video to shame people that are struggling financially. I'm making this video to highlight some of the habits that people have that keep them broke and ultimately prevents them from hitting their financial goals. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over 7 habits that people have that actually keep them broke and living paycheck to paycheck. And full disclosure, I have experienced each of the 7 things that I'm going to be going over in today's video. And it wasn't until I actually changed the way that I approach things to where I was actually able to change the trajectory of my financial future. Habit number 1 is not having your goals mapped out. And the way that we do this is by creating the foundation for everything, which is creating a budget. Now, those of you that have been watching my content, especially over the last few months, then you know that I've been talking a lot about budgeting. And the reason I do that is because it is so important. It is the pillar to everything that we do from a financial perspective. It doesn't matter if you make $50,000 a year or $250,000 a year. If your budget is not tight, you are going to struggle to hit your financial goal. An analogy that I've used in the past, and I'll use it again because I think it fits so well, is that you wouldn't get in your car and drive to a new state, a new city, a new town, or whatever that you've never been to before without having directions on how to get there. There's no way that you would just get in your car, start driving, and hope to reach the destination just because. I also look at how I treat my finances the same way. We need to know exactly where we're going in order to make sure that we're taking the best approach to actually reach our destination. And we use a GPS, but back in the day when I was younger, it wasn't uncommon to pull a map out the entire direction of where you want to go, and you follow that map until you actually get to the place that you want to be. And that's what we have to do from a financial perspective. And that's what putting a budget in place is going to allow us to do. If you don't think that you need to put a budget in place in order to start seeing some changes in your financial outcomes, you're sadly mistaken. Let's face it, you're in this position of living paycheck to paycheck. So what you're doing is not working. It's something that I had to go through, and ultimately it's going to be something that you're going to have to go through as well. So the first habit that you need to make sure that you get under control is getting your map in place, AKA your budget foundation, AKA your budget. The second habit that keeps people broke and ultimately living paycheck to paycheck is using credit as income. Now, this was a problem for me in my 20s. I had just graduated from college with my bachelor's degree. I got my first real corporate job working in the pharmaceutical industry, and I had a job that was paying more money than I had ever made in my life. Now, we're talking mid-2000s here, and we're not talking a lot of money, but at the time it was a lot of money for me. And what I did is I started going out and I started putting things on credit, right? I went out, I bought a new car. I bought new clothes. I was just buying things on credit that I didn't even need. And it was because I was making more money. I deserved it, right? I deserved it for all the hard work that I had put in going to college and all the hard work that I was putting in at my new job in the pharma industry. And the only thing that did is that set me back by at least 5 years financially. I got in so much credit card debt. I had student loan debt at the time. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. And every paycheck that I got, I was using to pay down debt. And I was still going out and using credit cards, even though I paid them off. Because you see, I was using that credit as income. I knew I could go to the grocery store and I could put my groceries on my credit card. I needed gas in my car, went on my credit card. I needed brakes for my car, it went on my credit card. And this went on for so long that it just seemed like it was second nature. And by the time I looked up, my wife and I were deep in credit card debt, and we didn't know what we were going to do to get out of it. Anytime I'm having a conversation with someone and they say, hey, Clarence, what's the number one advice that you would give to someone to help them get on track financially? And let's just take budgeting off the table because we already talked about that being the number one thing. But outside of budgeting, staying out of debt, and more specifically in credit card debt, we're talking about the ability to go out and buy things that you don't even need and then you have to pay them back over time, often with the highest interest rates out there, which can be as high as 27 to 30% interest. And I've talked so much on my channel about how difficult and how long it took for me to get out of credit card debt, and that's because I was using credit as income. Habit number 3 that is keeping people broke is only relying on one stream of income. There are so many people that rely solely on the income that they get from their 9 to 5. And for some reason, we think that's all that we need. That was my experience until my early 30s. I always knew that there were people out there that had a side hustle or a side business, and they were bringing in additional streams of income, but I really didn't understand the importance of incorporating that into my life. And now fast forward to 2025, and we have seen layoffs going on all across the country. So no one's safe. If you are in corporate America, your job is not safe. No matter who tells you that it is, your job's not safe. And that should remind us that we can't just rely on corporations and our job to ensure that we are going to be fine from a financial perspective. Now, there's a lot of people out there that talk about multiple streams of income. You got to have multiple streams of income. Let's define what multiple streams of incomes are, right? If you're a person that's making $50,000 a year, and that's right around average for the US, no matter what anybody tells you, $100,000 a year is not an average salary. We're gonna go with $50,000 a year. And let's say you have a side business where you sell things on eBay, completely making that up, and you make an additional $20,000 a year doing this. If you actually use that $20,000 to pay off debt and invest, you are going to be so much further ahead than the average American. Whenever you hear people talk about multiple streams of income, it's great to talk about that. It's great to watch videos on that and how to achieve it. But ultimately, when you put it in practice, you don't have to have an additional stream of income that is an astronomical number. You can start smaller and work your way up, but any additional income that you bring in, you can use that to pay off debt and to invest, which is ultimately going to increase your net worth. Habit number 4 is living above your means. Man, let me tell you, when I talk about I have experienced all of the things that I'm going to be talking about in today's video, this has to be one of the biggest ones, because I was one of those people that grew up and I didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of financial education, didn't have anyone that could actually mentor me and show me what I was supposed to be doing with my money. I wanted to be out there. I wanted to show out. I wanted to have the best cars. I wanted to have the best clothes. I mean, I had so much junk that I didn't even need. And when I look back, I'll flip through like my family album and I'll see pictures of me whenever I was younger. And I'll say, man, I paid that for that? I paid that much money for that? And at the time it was great. But when you fast forward to 45, like I am, you realize that you wasted a bunch of money on things that have no value, when I could have been using that money to invest in the stock market or invest in real estate or actually do something constructive with my money. I was spending it on lifestyle. And lifestyle creep is something that happens and most people don't even realize that it's going on. But now that you know that lifestyle creep is one of the habits that are ultimately leaving you broke and living check to check, you're going to address that and you're going to get it under control. And you're no longer going to allow that to be one of the reasons that you can't get ahead financially. Habit number 5 that keeps people broke and living paycheck to paycheck is avoiding financial education. Now, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people about something like the stock market, and they have no idea on how the market operates. And I'm not saying that to judge someone for not having the education. It's just a reminder that it just seems like there's a stigma when it comes to investing. I received this comment right here on one of my videos, and they were talking about how the stock market is a scam. And no matter what you tell these people, they're never going to listen to anything that you say. And I used to be one of those people. I did not want to learn about the stock market. I thought it was only for the wealthy. And I thought that I could work a 9 to 5 in order to get ahead financially and ultimately gain wealth. And it wasn't until I started to educate myself on the stock market, on business, on real estate, that I started to understand how people gain true wealth. Now, a couple of books that I read that I'll recommend to you is the first one is one that everyone talks about, but I'll still mention it because I think it's still a good read that gives you a good foundation, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This book actually goes into the psychological thought process of how two different people actually approach money and why one is successful and one isn't. The second book is going to be The Richest Man in Babylon. And the third book is going to be The Millionaire Next Door. If you have an opportunity, make sure to check out each one of those books because I think they're going to give you a solid foundation to get you started on how people look at money from a psychological perspective. Because sometimes I think that's the approach that we need to take. You give people examples of how they can implement things in their real life, and it makes it much easier to understand. Habit number 3 that keeps people broke is wasting money on convenience. I did a DoorDash order last week for the first time in a really long time. I was shocked at how much it actually costs to buy my food on DoorDash. The place was literally 5 minutes away and the cost was ridiculous, and it was all delivery fees and service fees. And by the time you tip, you're almost paying double what it would cost to actually just go and get the item. So we live in a what have you done for me lately now society. We want everything now and we want it convenient. And with convenience, there's a cost that comes with that. So you have to understand what's more important, the convenience of having DoorDash delivered to your door, or just getting up and driving over yourself, or just not buying it at all. And no, the $30 that you paid for that food that actually only cost you like $12 is not the reason why you can't bridge the gap financially every single month. It's the combination of all of those things over a long period of time that causes the issue. Habit number 7 that keeps people broke and ultimately living paycheck to paycheck is they have a consumer mentality as opposed to a creator mentality. And a creator mentality can mean multiple different things. So the example that I'll use for this is, let's just say I want to buy a new Apple Watch. An Apple Watch costs $300. And in order for me to buy that Apple Watch, I also have to invest $300 into purchasing Apple stock. See, I'm creating future income for myself by investing in one of the top companies that you can invest in. And early on, when I first started to learn how to invest, that's how I approach things. I would go out, I would research the companies that I was buying items from, and I would invest in them because I was using them. If I wanted to buy a pair of Nikes, I would invest in Nike stock. If I took my kids to McDonald's, I would buy McDonald's stock. If I was gonna purchase a Disney vacation, I'm gonna invest in Disney. And that was one of the ways that helped me flip the script a little bit, so to speak, from being a consumer into a creator. Some people might think that that's too restricting, but as someone that's 45 years old and has spent a lot of money on a bunch of junk, I can tell you it's much more advantageous to invest in your future instead of buying things that you can use in the now that you don't even really want or need. Because think about it. How often do you want something so bad? You think about it. You're like, man, I'm gonna get this as soon as it drops. I'm gonna go out and get it. The item drops, you go get it. You like it for a couple of days, and then a week or two later, it's just another item that you purchase that you don't really care about. So what do you guys think about those 7 habits? I know I left some things out, but I can tell you that I have personally experienced all 7 of the things that I talked about in today's video. And it wasn't until I changed my mindset that things started changing for me financially.